Welcome to the Exposed Strength Podcast with Jared Bennett. Today's episode, we're going to talk about measuring for broke folk and more on the squat ratios and the dumbbell jumps. So I got a message. It just basically said, Jared, have you ever experimented with accommodating resistance? Not sure how that would affect the ratios, but I saw up to a 40-pound jump in box squats on my players and a pretty substantial increase in the 40-yard time. What would you recommend for measuring 40s and verticals for broke folk? So I told him my message in the back. I said, I'll do a podcast on that later, and it'll be titled Measuring for Broke Folk. I told him I'll do it this week. So what I thought about is, like, people always crap on the jump mat. I use the jump mat. I don't care if it's accurate or not. I don't care what people say. People will crap. Hey, look, won't you stop posting fake verticals and stuff like that? The only thing that I know is I have old plyo boxes, old metal ones. They come 12, 18, 24, 30, and 36 inch heights and 42. I have set my camera up almost dead even, and when a kid falls down from the box, say we're doing a depth jump, he falls down from the box and he jumps up, and jump mat reads 30 inches, his feet are level at the top of that 30-inch box. Same thing with a person, if they jump a 26-inch vertical, they're just slightly higher than the 24-inch box. So I don't care what people say. All I'm doing is measuring based off of what I see. The jump mat is consistent with the plyo boxes behind them, or even if they're off to the side, they're still jumping the same height as what the mat says. So people can crap and do all they want to, but you know what? I just think they're jealous. People will hate on people that are doing something good. Hey, if you're good at golf, well, your swing's crappy or something like that. The weak people will always criticize the strong. The unsuccessful will always criticize the successful. So if you're doing something good and you're getting criticism, that's good for you. Controversy creates interest. So roll on with it. That's what I do, because I don't care what people think. All I know is I care about the people at the gym. They're improving. Their 40-yard times are improving. And you can check this out. If you take a kid, as long as you have a jump mat or something like that to where you can continue measuring and showing progress, if they're barely at the 24-inch height, then a couple months later, they're at the 30-inch height of that same box, that's improvement. Regardless of what the jump mat says or not, they're improving. So the dumbbell jumps are working to actually improve the jump height of these athletes, regardless of what you think the numbers are or not. When these kids go to combines, you got to remember, I had the number 1, 7, and 9 highest vertical jump kid in the country. I had 3 in the top 10, 7 in the top 50, and 11 in the top 100. I had 10% of the country's highest jumpers. So obviously the system works, so people can hate and do whatever they want. So let's get on with that. So let's get back to measuring. So if you don't have a jump mat, how can we measure your jump height? If you want to jump with dumbbells, I get comments all the time. I'm almost out of my second round of jump books. They're going out, like I said, they're a very thin book. They tell you exactly how we wave, how we pick our dumbbells, and whatnot to improve those vertical jumps. I'm over 40, 41, 42 people jump to 40-inch vertical by now. And not only that, when they're leaving the gym and they're going to their college, whether it's D1, D1 AA or whatever, when these athletes are measured on the force plates at their college, they're producing the highest rates of force development. Like, I'm working with a professional baseball player that's a pitcher right now. They have the best force plate number readings out there, and they have never used a force plate. So these kids are coming to these universities as freshmen, kicking everyone else's ass because of what they've done in dumbbell. Dumbbell jumps help you produce a lot of force. Now, also for my baseball players, the American College of Sports Medicine correlated jump height with throwing speed. Now, there's going to be a point to where it's not going to be precise, but you just got to have a check mark. Like, people hate on, like, the squat ratios. If you're not within that ratio, squatting more is not the limiting factor. Something else is the limiting factor. So for 1 year, my baseball players went up about 10, 11 inches, and most of my baseball players experienced a 7-8 mile an hour throwing increase. I got a baseball kid right now that's coming to the gym. His velocity is already going up 3 miles an hour in 3 months. So about a mile per hour per month if you're doing your stuff. Now, if the athletes are squatting and improving their squat, but they're not using the dumbbell jumps, their 40-yard dashes are not improving like the kids that are squatting and jumping. Remember, squatting's building your fast twitch fibers, and the jumping with the weights is sharpening the rate at which those fibers are now being fired. So if you got slow fibers, fast twitch fibers, intermediate fibers, the dumbbell jumps will help shift those intermediate fibers to the fast side, and for the newly acquired fibers over time, you can actually build fast twitch fibers with the heavy squat loads, but you're also sharpening the rate at which those new fibers are fired by using the dumbbells. It's just more about neuromuscular coordination. So the motor neurons attach that fiber. So if you look up motor neurons on Google or whatever, it looks just like an arm. So you got your arm, then it's got like 5 fingers or so at the end. Well, if only 2 of the 5 fingers are attached, it's not going to squeeze that fiber as hard. So the more stimulus you can get with training, like with the dumbbells or the squats, you're now going from 2 fingers to 3 fingers to 4 fingers to 5 fingers. So now once your whole hand can grab and pull on that fiber, the faster and harder that fiber will contract. And over time, if you keep doing it, your body will learn that and you'll produce greater force. Now, a lot of people don't know bench press is correlated with swing speed in baseball, softball, golf. I do not have a very good looking golf swing. It's better than most other just people, but it's not perfect. You know, like you got a female golfer out there, their swings are perfect. Just got like you even got kids that just want to go work on their kicking. They just want to go kick, 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 and kick, but they never want to do anything to acquire power. My 3-iron goes the average LPGA Tour driving distance with their driver. So my crappy swing, female golfers, their swings look a lot better than mine. But my I even went to Club Champion or whatever the other day, and the guy was amazed at my swing speed because I've got a lot of power, but I don't have the greatest technique. So the more power you got, the more you can get away with having crappy technique. So, you know, then you got people that want to just work on their perfect technique. Well, if they're off a little bit, that thing's not going to go anywhere. So what I'm saying is you have to do something to increase your strength. Then you got to do something to work on the rate at which the force is developed. And so with the dumbbell jumps and everything, people still go outside the gym and kill everybody else. I'm like, how the hell do they do that? Well, it's one common location. It's called explosive mechanics. But anyway, before I'll get off on these freaking tangents all the time for those of you who watch and listen. But for measuring for broke folk, if you don't want to go spend whatever a jump mat is nowadays, $700-800 or whatever they are, I've got like 6 of them, so I don't have to go buy it. And they have lasted me for 2011-ish. So about 12 years, you know. And I've never had a problem. I've had to replace the head units because the kids drop the dumbbells on them. I see people on Instagram and stuff, they have put up a stand where it keeps the head unit off the ground, but for some reason I've never done that because I get kids at the gym that play around a lot. So anyway, like I was saying earlier in the podcast, measuring for broke folk, if you don't have a mat, and you heard what I said about having the boxes behind where jumping to the height, what you could do is if you had a wall behind you, or you go with some plywood, paint it white, and put some black lines on it, you can put them at 20 inches, 24 inches, 28 inches, 32 inches, whatever inch set rep scheme you want to go to. You know, if you wanted to do them every 6 inches, like the 24, 30, 36, 42, however you want to do it. Over time, if you don't have a jump mat and you can see, and you put the camera at the same spot, trying to be consistent, hey, this camera is this high off the ground, you know, instead of angle it here or there, if you keep the camera consistent. And over time in training, if you can see with the kids, if they're jumping up and their feet are going from a 24-inch line to now a 30-inch line, you know they're improving. So if you don't have a jump mat, maybe painting some lines on the wall behind you, and then videoing yourself or videoing whoever you're training and try to jump higher than that line that's behind you. You know, you can do that. And I don't have an expensive broad jump thing. I have my rubber flooring. So what I did is I measured out 2 feet wide, 12 feet long. And when I first started at the gym, if you didn't jump a 5-foot broad jump, you weren't qualified to come to the gym. But since then I've changed because I've had kids that couldn't jump 5 feet. They were in ninth grade. Then they ended up jumping 10 feet. It's like, okay, you can actually help and improve these kids, and that's what I want to do. And so over time, I mean, I had some kids that were so unathletic, they probably couldn't even jump over a sheet of paper. Then, after years of training, they have become the most athletic people, and the people at the gym, like, these guys are freaks. They weren't always freaks as training. Like everybody wants to blame stuff on genetics. No, you can take an unathletic person and make them super, well, you can give them super ability to produce force, throw, run, and jump. Their skill acquisitions got to come from a good sports coach. Because all I know how to do is give the kid power. I don't know anything about a baseball swing. I know a little bit about a golf swing, but I'm not a professional at that. I don't study it. I go play it and, try to be consistent with it. There could be some stuff I could do that's could be done better, but my power, I can get away with power right now. So, you take all the drug and stuff you want to and still not hit bombs like Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds did. So, I'm not sure about how to measure for the Tendo. I did have someone message me. Fantastic information, Jared. I would love to know, how do I time a lift if I do not have a Tendo? Should I do 5 reps in 8 seconds, 3 reps in 8 seconds, or what should I do at 1.75 times body weight? Years ago when I first started the gym, Louis I would try to get 3 reps done in 3 seconds, so a rep per second. But even a squat, 2 reps in 3 seconds, things of that nature. But if you're trying to go down and you're trying to rush and touch that box, your back kind of gets jammed. You can kind of mess up your SI joints and things. And once I finally got a Tendo, I realized if I'm trying to do a certain amount of reps in a certain amount of second time, my Tendo numbers go boom, boom, boom down. So instead of getting like a 6-1, a 5-9, and a 5-7 or whatever, it may go 6-1, 5-5, 4-9. So you're going to have a drastic drop. And so over time, when you're trying to train or teach your body, training's teaching the body how to do these things. And over time, you could do them without a warm up. Like I've got some kids that could not jump a 30-inch vertical, and now they can jump a 33 without even warming up. So they're going from the 20s to 30s. So eventually, if you train long enough, you can do what you could not do without a warm up. You got people that can bench 225, 275 without warming up, and before when they even started coming to the gym, they couldn't even bench 200. So, train and teach your body how to do these things, and once you have the power and you have the strength that correlates to whatever sporting movement you want to do, then it's up to the sport coach to teach you how to do those skills better. A lot of times these coaches don't take time to teach the skill. They just want to have the player that already has the skill and the strength level maybe, and just play them without trying to develop them. Like you've got to develop these players. You can have a kid that's got high potential, but may not be showing right now. But if you take a little bit of time and put some effort into them, they could really blossom, like that kid that couldn't jump over a sheet of paper. He ended up going to college on a scholarship because he had the ability to run and jump and throw. Went from a 75-pound bench in 9th grade, graduating high school with a 385-pound bench. Like I was telling someone the other day, I had a kid squat 661. He came to me at 12 years old with a 95-pound squat max. So and the 661 was done in a powerlifting competition. So a 12-year-old squatted 95 pounds in 5 years. We squatted 661. So not sure about how to do the Tendo. I did realize once we had the Tendo and you got that visual feedback, our reps were not, it's about how fast each rep is done and not how fast the set is done. Trying to clarify that on Tendo. I will post a video sometime on YouTube about what a 0.6 looks like, maybe about a 0.4, and you kind of gauge 0.5 and try to time it. Because I did have this guy, he said, hey Jared, I had my first read through your jump book and have just a quick question. When you're squatting individuals over 6'3", are you still using the same 12-inch box setup with a 6-inch pad? Or are you looking for certain knee angles and depths? No, we're not looking for knee angles or depths. We're looking to, okay, I've got a kid that's 6'4", plays at Navy now. And he did not want to squat off the higher box. Now I got a kid that's 6'2" that wanted to squat off the higher box. And so, okay, I allowed the kid at 6'2" to squat off the higher box. And his squat ratios were not matching up with his 40-yard dash time. And once I took that pad away, I did a YouTube video on cheating the Tendo or something like that. Once I took that pad away, his squat then matched the ratio. You know, so if you're squatting 1.7 sometimes your body weight and you're not running a 4.7 40-yard dash, and now it depends on which box you're squatting with, because they have changed the box stiffness over time, which can mess with the numbers. So whatever box you get, buy multiple of them and keep it and work on your consistency with it. Mine came from Elite Fitness. I don't get anything from Elite Fitness, but that's where mine came from. And they have lasted, there's no telling how many I'm squat. Like someone asked a question, I probably average 45 to 50 reps per week per athlete on the squat. So the guy that was 6'4", he squatted off 12-inch box and he matched the ratio. He was running a 1.68. He was squatting 1.68 times his body weight and running off 4.81 to 4.83. So that 1.68 you see is almost a 7. So once you get a 1.7 times your body weight ratio, you should be running a 4.7. He was very close. He was squatting 1.68 and he ran a 4.81. So the numbers are very tight. And somebody asked me the other day, email or Instagram or YouTube or somewhere where these questions are coming from. I'll do a better job of trying to hone in the ratio to jump height, but I've been so concerned about the 40-yard dash time because I got kids that come in, they got to go to camp at the beginning of June and July, and so when they get there, if they're not running these 40-yard dash times, it don't matter what their jump height is, because if they're not running and hitting a certain speed, they're not getting scholarships. So that's why I've honed in trying to get the ratio. Now, I heard someone on some social media thing somewhere, hey, I can squat the house, but I still can't outrun Johan Blake or whatever these people's names are. Maybe in the first 15 to 20 yards you can, but no one tests that. These guys are not going to come run against a powerlifter. You got to think Paul Anderson, 36-inch thighs, 5'10", 360 pounds. He was outrunning Olympic sprinters in the first 15 meters. Big, huge, fat white guy was outrunning people with 5% body fat in the first 15 to 20 meters. But he also squatted 1,200 pounds. You know, so the squatting is still essential. So the thing is, okay, if your 6'2" guy is squatting off a higher box, or you're 6'3", like sometimes I may put a 1-inch plate up under it, so you may go from a 12-inch box to a 13-inch box, but still with the same blue foam pad. And at the end of the month, if they're squatting this, but they're not within that ratio, I'm adjusting stuff to figure out where they are in the ratio. Figuring out how to get that athlete fall into the ratio is more important than knee angles and all this stuff, because the 6'4" guy, he's got pretty long shins, and he was matching the ratio, so I didn't really give a crap about the depth. All I cared about, like a lot of people will get over concerned with, hey, I squatted 600, but you squatted 600 off a 14-inch box with a 6-inch pad, but you're nowhere near the ratio. So you may be squatting a crap ton, but then you're that kid that can squat this, but you're not following in, but you're still slow. So you're just that strong kid in the weight room that's not producing on the field. So you got to make sure your heights and everything else. I just kind of laid a baseline out for people about the ratios and where they should be. But you know, also if they're not dumbbell jumping, or I keep saying dumbbell, we dumbbell jump all the time. Because a lot of times, if you try to be explosive, it's one jump at a time. Most people out there on the internet are trying to be fad. Like I see this stuff on Instagram, and I just want to call the people freaking retarded, because they're the multiple jumps. They're jumping conditioning style instead of explosive style. Explosives, boom, one rep. When you pitch, one throw at a time. When you swing it back, one swing at a time. When you throw somebody out from home to first or from home to second, one throw at a time. If you're kicking a football, boom, one kick at a time. You're not doing multiple kicks. A lot of stuff comes from stupid track and trying to be elastic. You can get away with not being super elastic if the distance is shorter. So like running your 40, like if you heard me talk about on other podcasts, Bolt would get his butt kicked in the first 50 meters track because he's middle of the pack, and sometimes at the end, he's still accelerating out to 65 meters, 70 meters, and everybody else is slowing down as he's still maintaining. So you got an acceleration phase, maintain phase, and a decel phase. His decel phase is shorter because his acceleration phase is longer, but it takes him a little bit longer to get there. So if you go back and look at his stuff on the thing, yeah, just like that guy said, he may not be able to run this, outrun this Olympic sprinter. In a short distance, yeah, he may. So if you're playing football, you know, like football, baseball, whatever sport you're playing, you know, we're talking about sport, all the tracks of sport itself. But a field sport, you're not really running more than 15 to 20 yards in a straight line. So if your powerlifting self can outrun Johan Blake or whoever else, but I don't know why that name pops in my head, or Bolt, if you can like Paul Anderson was outrunning Olympic sprinters in the first 15, 20 meters, he would be a better linebacker than those guys would, although they may be a better receiver depending on how far they get downfield to do whatever their job is. So that's why you need to look at these individuals and figure out what your job is. Figure out what you need and attack it. Don't copy somebody else. You know, like I didn't copy anybody on these squat ratios. I came up with this to try to figure out what the limiting factor was. If they're hitting the ratio and they're still not running that 40-yard dash, squatting more may not be the key. There is something limiting them from producing what they need to get that stuff done. Now, I've got some kids that are bad in the back half of the 40-yard dash, and I'm still working on that. I still got a lot of stuff to do. You know, it's just a way to try to figure out what the limiting factor is. It's not like, okay, I'm guessing this, I'm guessing that. You got a lot of people like, I see this person's 40-yard dash time. I see, do you really? But do you really? You know, their flying 10 could improve, but their 40-yard dash time could still suck balls. You know, you've got to measure this 40. If you don't, I used a Brower timing system. It's more tightly knitted. It's my ratios, my 40-yard dash times are going to be, if you don't use the same timing system, we may not be getting the same results. Now, some people use the gym wear. I don't really want to have the gym wear. And sometimes they say it could be whatever with a Tendo unit. I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to. All I'm telling you all is I have a Tendo unit. I measure jump heights and whatnot. So like if someone wants to compare my stuff to a force plate, if you got a force plate and you want to come to the gym and test it out and whatever, yeah, my athletes, the dumbbell jump will kick all your people's ass on the force plate, force reading numbers. The vertical jump height may be different, especially if you got to put your hands on your waist and don't have much of a dip. You got to think jumping's hip extension. It comes from your glutes and your hamstrings. A lot of people will say your calves and all this crap. I have no clue where that freaking came from. So if you look at a biomechanics book, that's what made me, okay, your knees and hips extend at the same time when you squat. So if you're squatting, you're strengthening that range of motion. Now we got to increase the rate of force development. What's the best way to do it? Is to jump. But you got to jump with a certain load that allows you to produce a certain amount of force in order for you to produce a desired result. So hopefully I didn't get so far off on everything. Let me see if I covered what I wanted to. I don't know if I quite covered it. We don't use bands, chains, or anything like that. We did experiment with it for a while, and with the different height, let's say if you got your chains and you're training as many people, if you're individually training one person at a time, you may, and I say you can improve their squat, but the strength curve is going to be a little different, because if you got someone that's now 5'10" versus 6'4", the 6'4" person is going to be lifting more chain up off the floor than the 5'10". So you'd have to figure out how to adjust the chain based off the individual's height. And if you had 4 people per squat rack or 3 people per squat rack, or even if you had just 2 people per squat rack, trying to adjust that chain per person would almost be impossible. So someone's going to get a little this and someone's going to get a little not so much of this. So it just really depends on the height of the person. So even the same thing with the band tension, the taller person is going to have a lot more tension on the band at the top. And the thing about the bands is, depending on how they're choked around the thing, if you have to come in, set it up, and choke it, you may choke it a little differently this time compared to what you did last time. And that's the thing when I was trying to figure out when I was using bands with my squat, the tension would be different based off the time, based on if I had it choked exactly the same or not, so it was difficult to really figure that out. But the reason why Louis made all this stuff popular, they were using bands and chains and accommodating resistance, because accommodating resistance teaches you how to accelerate against a load. And so when the acceleration for them is a lot more critical than someone accelerating for raw, because they were using gear, they were using bench shirts, they were using squat suits. And so they have to have a high rate of force, which can teach you a high rate of force development, depending on, it teaches you rate of force development. It can teach you how to apply force against the bar to a point to where it's not going to help you. But for them, it was much more applicable, because they had to produce force before their squat suit or their bench shirt quit working. So if they did not learn how to do that, add more chain on what they were doing, I did go to Westside. I've been talking to Louis since 2002. I last saw him a couple months before he died. Louis mentioned me on his podcast. It's just a different world. And when I was up there last time with him, I told him, I said, I'm not Westside Barbell. I said, Louis, thank you for all the information. And I told him what kind of a system that I set up. And he said, that's all that matters, is that you have a system, that you're understanding what you're doing. I told him about brief maximum tension, not max effort, because it all has to do with training age. I don't know what number to pinpoint for the training age before you can start doing more max effort, but brief maximum tension is max effort. It's a sub-method, so they're tied and linked together, just like the squats are linked to the jumps. If you squat and you jump, you're going to improve your 40. So without even having to run, if your athletes were to get tested at school or whatever, that could be a way to test the 40s, because this guy said, how do you test the 40? You can't test with a stopwatch. He even had this guy, he was a coach, and he said he's tested so many 40-yard dashers. He's very good with stopwatch. He was still 0.2 of a second off of my laser system, and he didn't believe the laser system, he believed the stopwatch. And so when his kid goes to a combine and he runs slower than what his stopwatch said, he tries to blame it on the training. No, it's what it is. I'll show you what. And so it's kind of very frustrating at some points in time to try to prove a point. Look, these numbers are not lying. It's a feedback device. There's no human interaction. For someone to be I'm not even that consistent with stopwatch. I've tried to beat the laser system. I tried to be perfectly timing it. I just gave up. There's no point. I got the laser system. I don't have to be perfect, because I'm never going to time anybody with a stopwatch anyway, because I don't like it. It's so inconsistent. It's so not right. And it's how good you are outside the gym. So like if I'm timing people with a stopwatch or trying to make their times better at the gym, they go somewhere else. If they're running a 5 flat at the gym and they go somewhere else and they run a 4.8, they're super excited. But if I say they're running a 4.8 at the gym, they go somewhere running a 5 flat, and it messes up their numbers or their chances of getting a scholarship, I have failed them. And I don't want to do that. My job is to help people. So hopefully I didn't get off on too much of a tangent or whatever, but hopefully the lines on the board for you jumping could help you. I drew broad jump. I measured 2 feet wide, 12 feet long, and I started at 5 feet. Then I went up every inch, 5'1", 5'2", and I went and bought this has been on the ground for 11 years, and I've only had to redo one of them or just kind of highlight. So I just went and bought a paint pen at Walmart, and I made my own broad jump grid on rubber, and it's been there forever. Even you go do the same thing, you get 2 stall mats from Tractor Supply and do your own grid on it, save a lot of money. So, and it lasts you forever, and you can move it. Mine's pretty much glued and stuck to the floor, but I didn't plan on moving. So anyway, thanks for the questions, and just keep sending them my way. If y'all do have more questions or want to talk more about this, I do a crappy job. I emailed a lot of people back today. I emailed and did a lot of YouTube questions today. That's kind of what brought me to this. But if you have questions, I'll do a lot better job if you email me at info@explosivemechanics. And if you do not hear back from me, please check your spam, because I do get a lot of crap that goes to people's spam. Even for people that's inquiring about the gym, I send an email back. I never heard back from them, but I did send them an email back. So, sometimes I just get frustrated. What's the point, And for people that are calling me, man, I had this person call over and over and over again, and I didn't answer. I get so many freaking spam calls, I just don't answer the freaking phone. And so if you leave me a message, I'll call you back. Um, and so my number is on the internet at explosivemechanics.com. So there's my number. Give me a call if you got a question. If I don't answer, leave a message. If you're inquiring about online training and I don't answer, leave a message. How do I know if I see the same? I get these stupid spam calls calling all the time. This one looks like spam. I answer just like damn spam. Okay, so I don't answer the phone, but I will give you a return phone call if you're in my contacts. I will answer the phone, but if you're not my contacts, good luck getting a hold of me. I had this kid. I called several times the gym to inquire about the gym. I got an email, and no one ever answers. No shit, we don't answer the phone. My business line is my cell phone. There's no business line. My line is my cell phone, and that's it. There's no gym line. So, heck, you can text the number. Hey, Jared, this is a little. I heard you on your podcast or whatever. That's fine too. But sometimes I'm skeptical of the text messages. So, best thing is, leave me a voicemail. I had a coach from BYU the other day left me a voicemail, called him back. Had a conversation, 45 minutes, talked about dumbbell jump and how to implement it for the throwers and stuff out there. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.